Let's be honest, items in Mario Kart are overpowered. Seriously, it's a racing game where the items speed you up, slow down other players, the strongest items in the game make you invincible to all items, and don't you dare think you're too good for this game because we have an item just for you. I really think that you could even forget to race an entire lap and catch up just because the items are that good. So what if we got rid of all of that? But not just for everyone, just me. That's why
Today, we are going to be playing every Mario Kart without items, every Grand Prix, in every engine class, and we are starting with the newest entry in the series, Mario Kart 8.
I start the game by choosing 50cc and my favorite character, Funky Monkey. I put him on a scooter, select the Mushroom Cup, and enter my first race, Mario Kart Stadium.
Oh, and I'm playing through OBS, like the preview window, so I have a like half-second delay or something.
Nothing too interesting happens during this race,
Shell.
except for these two red shells that almost hit me after I got off the ramp near the end.
Wait. Come on, make it. There we go.
And I almost managed to lap one of the CPUs.
I want to lap someone. This is just a personal thing. It's for my ego. Come on, please. I want it so bad. I want it so bad. I'm not gonna get it. I almost lapped him.
And that's our first race for Mario Kart 8. 1 down, 479 more to go. It was around this point that I started thinking about how important coins would become as my main way of becoming faster than my opponents.
I don't know how important coins are going to be.
And just after that, we get hit by our first blue shell.
Oh, there's...
And it definitely will not be our last. Once again, right near the end of the race, I see something. Someone.
Oh, am I already going to lap someone?
Daisy, far behind the rest of the pack.
For me.
And this time we are far away enough from the finish line that I actually have a chance.
I technically lapped him, just not for very long.
I do mess up a bit at the end, but I am so far ahead it doesn't matter.
My boy Funky Kong's so good.
Nothing happened during Sweet Sweet Canyon.
Third race done.
In Thwomp Ruins, I noticed another blue shell coming for me at the start of lap 2.
There's a blue shell already? I barely even started the second lap.
And another one at the start of lap 3.
Who's ready to be blue shelled again? And that is our first Grand Prix done. That is a 1 out of 24 for this game.
I guess we'll just start a pile here.
So
I continue through the rest of the 50cc cups, and nothing very interesting happens. Sometimes I'll make a mistake, other times I'll be hit by the occasional lightning strike or blue shell, maybe a red shell from time to time.
you do. Okay. There's another one. This game, man. This game. If this was any other CC, I think I would have lost.
But the majority of the time in 50cc, I'm front running by a large margin.
So good for my ego if I lap someone with the worst combination.
Except for this short period of time in Royal Raceway.
Okay, well, that's on you. That's on you. You wanted first place so bad. Go and take it.
And this time in Super Bell Subway when I just kept running into the trains, running off the track, and getting hit by a few items in a row, letting them get close enough to me to almost hit me with a boomerang. But in the end, I still got first. And with a drama-free Big Blue, I finished all the base Grand Prix in first place.
Every base course done for 50cc. That took me just over 3 hours. Oh, that took so much longer than I thought it would. And the worst thing is we're only halfway done.
It was somewhere around here that spending so much time racing at such a slow speed started to make me lose focus on the races. Combined with all the items coming for me, and Tokyo Blur is the closest I've come to getting a second place finish in a race yet.
This game, man. Then Funky Kong's right behind me. Dude!
I had zero issues during Shroom Ridge, and once again I was able to lap one of the CPUs by stealing their mushrooms. Sky Garden was some more of the usual. I make some mistakes, get hit by a few items, but I still get first by a large margin.
A last one. A last lightning strike just for good measure. Thank you.
And outside of hitting these Shy Guys on on purpose to dodge this blue shell,
that was actually...
nothing really happened on Ninja Hideaway, leading to another easy first place finish. At this point, my brain was fried, and I was going to finish up for the day.
Okay.
But in the end, I decided it would be fun to throw myself from 50cc straight into 200cc, just to see how much playing this game so slowly messed with my brain.
I did not expect 50cc to be that slow.
And I decided to do it on the Bell Cup, which I find has some of the hardest tracks for 200cc.
Oh, this feels so much better. I actually have to use the brakes. It does feel fast. after playing 50.
On Ribbon Road, I got hit by a few items, and I fell off the track a few times, and I still finished in first place. But Super Bell Subway was a completely different story.
Oh, okay. This is so bad. I'm getting Mario Karted so hard. Okay, well, let's see if I can make it back without any items. Oh, I'm playing terribly now. That Birdo better be in last place and not first, because they are very far away from the pack. What happened? What happened right now? I don't know what happened.
11th place. And just like I said during the stream, Funky Kong has one more point than me, which means I need to finish better than them to guarantee a first place finish.
Crazy. Okay, I gotta get first. Funky Kong has one more point than me.
Luckily, I start the race with triple bananas, which surround my cart automatically without me using them. Because of them, I was able to keep Waluigi away from me, and after performing the shortcut, they were able to protect me from a red shell that would have hit me during the cannon.
In that red shell. The banana was just in the right place.
And after that, it's just a casual drive to the finish line. And that marked the end of my first of many days that I would be playing Mario Kart.
Let's see how we do. Day 2. Gaming. 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 We're getting back into it. 50cc. I love 50cc so much.
The excitement wore off pretty quickly on day 2.
This is going to take a while. Hopefully we get done with 50cc today.
I really only had one goal in mind after spending an entire day making less than 1/10 of the progress that I thought I would make. And that was at least finishing 50cc. This was also my first time playing the DLC tracks. And since most of those were from games that I never really played that much, I thought this would make it go much smoother because I would not grow bored of them as much.
Oh, that's what I get for looking away from the screen. Be sure to text and drive at all times. Always be distracted. It's how you get better, actually.
That was only half correct, though.
Intrinsic.
Yes, the tracks kept me engaged longer because they were new, and because most of the tracks change each lap. But there's something about these DLC tracks that just makes them feel out of place and a little boring to me. So I've resorted to attempting to entertain myself.
Context clues. England. Ingerland. Dong, 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 dong. Come on, England. Dong, 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 dong. Okay, this one looks like a pretty quick map, though, which I love.
One good thing I could say about these tracks is that they go by pretty quick.
Wall dodge. Oh. I don't remember this one. I just know there's a moon. There's a part where we go on the moon. I do love the texture, though. The texture of the rainbow road. This truly is a rainbow road.
It took me over 3 hours to finish the base tracks in the game, but so far it's taken less than an hour to finish the top row of DLC tracks. I take a short break and then start the next row of Grand Prix.
Starting the last row for 50cc before we can move up to 100. I feel like I'm getting through these quicker.
And I think this is the better half of the DLC. Amsterdam Drift is probably the best looking Mario Kart tour track, especially this part with the field of flowers. And right after that is my favorite new track in the DLC, Yoshi's Island. I just love how this track looks, and how they change the coin sound to match Yoshi's Island's coins. Once again, I get hit a few times, but I don't even get close to losing my lead. And this just continued for the rest of the difficulty because I even started to lapse some CPUs once again. And because I was starting to not have much of a challenge again, I decided to start trying to entertain myself once again.
Okay, this is the one I confused for Rome. Every ancient civilization looks the same to me. They all did things with rocks, and built colosseums and things, and had massive glider ramps for sick tricks. Can we actually get in the water now? Yes, we can. I remember the first time I played on this track, I was like, oh, I want to go in the pool. And then I realized you can't go in the pool. And that's my story. This reminds me of driving inebriated. And then a family of 4 crashed into me. Me, a responsible drunk driver. I can't believe it. Never seen this one before. Okay, this is probably cooler. We go in the drain. There's a screw. There's a ring. I wonder what other treasures we can find. There's that goldfish that died when you were 11. You know, goldfish don't actually have short lifespans. They can grow very old. So 100%. That goldfish that died when you were 11 was 100% because of neglect. It was your fault.
Eventually, though, the repetitiveness started to catch up to me.
Starting to get to the point where I was at yesterday where my brain is just slowly turning to mush.
At least enough to the point where I started to notice. So here are the final 10 tracks summarized quickly. Koopa Cape had some differences from the Wii version, and even with being hit by a few shells, I still easily went in first. Vancouver Velocity was easy. Rome Avanti was easy. I was excited for DK Mountain.
Let's go! I can't wait to play this again for the Wii and the GameCube versions.
And because of the shortcut, I was able to lap a lot of CPUs. Daisy Circuit was uneventful, and Piranha Plant Cove was pretty boring for a completely new track.
One more Grand Prix. We're almost done.
I think this counts as animal abuse. Oh well. Rosalina's Ice World was also uneventful.
That was a nice track.
And so was Bowser's Castle 3.
One more. One more, we're so close. I can feel it.
But finally, we were on Wii Rainbow Road. It was also uneventful. I don't think I saw a single opponent for the entire race. But I think I'll let it slide on this track because the nostalgia and knowing that I was almost done with this mind-numbing difficulty more than made up for it.
Come on. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving. And... ooh, saved it. Without falling off. We are done with 50cc.
And once I was done, for a little bit of fun during the credits, I decided to calculate how much time the entire game would take.
Of course, is just over 20%. Oh, let's finish doing it. So, 5.333 repeating hours for 100cc. We're going to do 4.8 hours twice. And then 200cc is 50% faster. So we're going to divide that by 1.5. So 4.8 divided by 1.5. 3.2 hours is what 200cc should take. So 3.2 plus 4.8 times 2, because mirror mode and 150, plus 5. I'm just going to hold down the 3 plus... what was our first one? 6 hours. It's saying it's going to take 24 hours. So we're going to get started on 100cc.
I go ahead and do just that. And instantly the game just feels so much better than in 50cc.
Then again, I started with 5 coins, so I'm 5% faster. Let's switch it up. Let's take the blue one to match the blue shell that's coming for me.
And besides the game just feeling better, I also noticed that a lot more items were being used against me.
Just send everything at me. All at once. I can take it. Throw the other one while you're at it.
It was during this little stretch against Waluigi that planted this idea in my head that I wouldn't be able to take front running for granted anymore.
Oh, that shortcut.
Ultimately, I was still faster in a straightaway. But a few items at the wrong time and I could be losing my lead at any moment. But that doesn't matter, I just won my second Mushroom Cup. And it's time to start the next one.
I would say good aim, but that just sucked. Come on!
I just got passed by not one, but 2 CPUs.
I've just been getting destroyed by the items. Okay, that was me. That was me.
I managed to make my way back into first by the end.
I'm good. I'm good. I have no idea how they were that close to me the entire time. Oh, that blue shell's too late. That blue shell's way too late. Okay.
Now, I was going to stop at this point, but I decided to keep on going just a little bit more, because I wasn't as tired as I was when I stopped the day before. I struggled a little bit at the beginning of Sunshine Airport, but from this point on, I got the lead and never gave it back.
Again? Same spot?
And that continued because the only thing I lost during this cup was my memory of Dolphin Shoals.
Also, I thought this is the last one. What are the tracks I did? I remember Sunshine Airport. That's the first one. Something happened between Sunshine Airport and Electrodome. Dolphin Shoals? How did I forget about Dolphin Shoals?
During the Special Cup, I easily got first once again. But not even 38 seconds into Bowser's Castle, I started to get pelted by items,
Yay!
Causing me to lose my lead once again.
Do you see what I mean when I say, like, the game hates me?
I get my lead back, but because I keep getting hit by items, I never get too far away.
Done. Not done. Not done. There's still Rainbow Road.
I also forgot Rainbow Road exists. 2 red shells, 1 lightning strike on Rainbow Road.
Oh, look how far ahead I am. Still, these bots are like babies. Okay. I really want to see if I can finish the next 2. Keep it going. Keep it going. I can finish the top row. I can finish.
Nothing of note happened during Yoshi Circuit, Excite Bike Arena, Dragon Driftway, and Mute City. And finally, my last cup for the day, the Crossing Cup. Knowing that this is my last cup for the day fills me up with the last little bit of energy I had. Baby Park being the most chaotic track in the game helped too.
It's unfortunate. Oh, how does that... No, that shouldn't be how invincibility works.
I got hit by a few items at the end of Cheeseland, but it wasn't enough. Wildwoods had a bit of an eventful ending, and Animal Crossing was as chaotic as ever. But I finished in first place, and after 7 hours, I only had 1 1/4 engine classes done, so I decided I would start doing some races between stream whenever I had time. And with that, I end day 2. Psych! I came back 7 hours later to finish the rest of the 100cc cups. The rest of the 100cc races were just the same as 50cc, but faster. So here's all of them at once. Okay, that's the end of day 2. So I'm in the middle of working on the 150cc tracks for Mario Kart 8, and Nintendo decided to just tease the new Nintendo Switch, and the game they decided to use was a new Mario Kart. I mean, look at it. That's a completely new track. I think that kart is completely new. I don't know. It is. I gotta finish this as quickly as possible. At 150cc, the base game tracks definitely felt harder. At this point, I would have the CPUs right behind me every time I got hit by an item or two, but I was always able to pull away in time between getting hit by items. Sometimes the finish would be a little closer than I'd like, but I'd always get first place back. But after finishing in first place during all the 50 and 100cc tracks, I would finally get a second place finish on Sunshine Airport. I just got first place back before hitting the second to last turn in the track, and on my way to cut this last corner, I hit this box, sending me directly to the wall on the other side of the track. I tried to jump to turn as fast as possible, but it just wasn't enough, and I received second place. Which I would have been able to accept in 200cc or mirror mode, but it was a little embarrassing in 150cc. Especially considering it was completely my fault. And worst of all, no items were involved. And that was immediately followed by my second and third second place finishes. Mainly because I would keep getting pelted by items for the entirety of Dolphin Shoals and Electrodome. Luckily, I was able to race well enough during Mount Wario that it didn't matter, and I still got a first place finish. One thing that I noticed is that I was making fewer mistakes at the higher speeds. I think this has something to do with me being used to playing these tracks at 200cc, and I would take these turns too early at the slower engine classes. This made it so that the increase in difficulty was cancelled out by the increased familiarity with the speeds I was going, which meant that the usual pattern of either front-running for the entire track, or getting hit by enough items to lose my lead but getting it back by the end, held up until the Lightning Cup. Where on TikTok Clock, I managed to get the lead on the last turn, but I got hit by a red shell right after. And then another, which managed to get me down to 4th place, my worst so far. Despite some bad driving during Piranha Plant Slide, I got lucky and barely got hit by items, which allowed me to make up for the 4th place finish in the last track with a first. I was only 3 points behind Link, so I could be tied for first going into the last track with a first place finish. I managed to get first, and Link up third, which meant that I had a 2-point lead going into N64 Rainbow Road. And that 2-point lead came in handy, because I ended up in 2nd place to Bowser Jr., giving me just enough points to finish in first. The last 2 cups for the day were some more of the usual. 4 first place finishes, giving me a decisive first place in the last 2 cups. And with that, I decided to take a little break. I came back a few hours later to finish off 100cc, but the booster course tracks is when things started getting a little annoying. Nothing was wrong with the actual tracks, but it felt like half the time I would have no issues with the amount of items I would get hit with. And the other half, I would be front running, and towards the very end, I would get Mario Karted from 1st to around 4th place. This was so bad that during the Turnip Cup, I managed to get my first 2nd place trophy. On the bright side, I got my first wall dodge on Sydney Sprint. A few red shells at the wrong time cost me first on Snowland, but getting 3rd on Mushroom Gorge was completely my fault. I just kept falling off the track. Sky High Sunday sucks. Not because I lost, I never lose. I just realized that I played it 3 times and didn't enjoy myself once. During the 150cc Rock Cup, I just kept getting hit by so many items, but it only mattered on London Loop where I got 2nd. On the other tracks, I managed to get back into 1st. The Moon Cup started off pretty well. I was barely hit by any items during the entire Grand Prix, which made it pretty easy to get 1st on the first 3 tracks. But some bad driving during 3DS Rainbow Road meant that I had to settle for 2nd. I continued through the bottom row of cups, Amsterdam Drift was easy. Very few items. Riverside Park turned up the intensity with a lot more items. And the timing of the shells during DK Summit was borderline unfair. Yoshi's Island was a little bit of a clencher at the end with the blue shell chasing me. Bangkok. That's the joke. I got absolutely destroyed by items at the end of DS Mario Circuit, but I was able to take advantage of Mario slowing down inexplicably at the end of Waluigi Stadium. And I was able to race well enough during the end of Singapore Speedway to get first. I was fighting for my life on Athens Dash. A few last-second items meant I had to settle for third on Daisy Cruiser. All of the red shells during Moonview Highway made sure I wouldn't get back into first. But there weren't enough shells to keep me from first during Squeaky Clean Sprint. I had first stolen from me at the end of LA Laps. Sunset Wilds was a bit of a struggle, but I managed to pull through. I was able to relax a bit with Koopa Cape. I had an entire 1 1/4 of a lap without being hit by any items. And then just one red shell near the end of lap 3. Needless to say, getting first was easy. Once again, I'm able to get well over a lap without being hit in Vancouver Velocity. And this was even easier than Koopa Cape because that was the last thing to hit me in this race. Romavanti was some more of the usual. Plenty of items going my way, but spaced out far enough to let me build up my lead again. Apparently there was a thunderstorm on this specific spot on DK Mountain. Also, I had a pause in the middle of this race, and I accidentally turned on smart steering, which made it so I couldn't jump the gap. I changed it back not even 20 seconds into Daisy Circuit. And we're back to the usual with Piranha Plant Cove. I got pretty lucky pulling a triple banana that protected me from 2 of 4 red shells thrown at me during Madrid Drive. Some more of the usual during Rosalina's Ice World, and in Bowser Castle 3 I get hit by a shell and fall into the lava on lap 1, making me fall to 4th place. But I am able to get into first after almost exactly 1 lap, and I keep this lead all the way until the end. And finally, for 150cc, Wii Rainbow Road. Once again, I was lucky enough to pull a triple banana, and this time it blocked 3 of 4 red shells thrown at me. And that was just enough to make sure I finished in first, marking the end of 150cc for Mario Kart 8. I thought Mirror Mode would be more difficult. I guess not. I guess that it being the same difficulty as 150cc, and the extra practice of already playing 150cc, made it easier. The only problems I had were that my capture card went out at the start of Music Park, and because I couldn't tell if I had paused or not, the CPUs had around a 3/4 of a lap head start on me. Normally, catching up would be easy. With items, which I can't use. I was able to catch up to 11th by the start of the second lap, and by not falling off the track during some risky driving, I was able to get into 6th at the start of the final lap. And with a bit of luck, DK got hit by a shock, making him fall off the track, and giving me the lead with less than half a lap to go. And because there aren't that many hazards at the end of the track, I managed to get one of my favorite comebacks of the challenge. Another issue arose during N64 Rainbow Road. I raced pretty well during the entire track, meaning that I had a large lead over 2nd at the start of the 3rd lap. And then the items started coming at me. First a single red, then a blue shell, then another red. Luckily, another red was stopped by my invincibility. I go off the ramp thinking that I just narrowly dodged being Mario Karted, right before a 4th red shell hits me as soon as I land, meaning that I get a good view of DK gliding into the finish before me. One of the things I wrote down in my notes was, Bell Cup is cursed. Why would I write that down? Oh yeah, that's why. The last interesting thing that happened during Mirror Mode was that towards the end of Choco Mountain, I was hit by not 1, not 2, but 3 red shells, allowing Toad to pass me before the bumps. And I don't know what caused him to slow down, but with the boost from some tricks, I was able to barely sneak past them to get first. And that's all that really happened in Mirror Mode. But now we are able to move on to our final speed, 200cc. Home sweet home. And because I was so used to playing 200cc, in a way, this felt like the easiest engine class. Outside of Weenie Hunt Jr. over there. I had a few last-second first-place finishes on Yoshi Circuit, Donut Plains, and Piranha Plant Cove, and the usual item shenanigans resulting in worst placement on Dragon Driftway, Wario Stadium, Toad Circuit, Boo Lake, Riverside Park, and DS Mario Circuit. My biggest mistake was burning out on SNES Rainbow Road, and I still managed to get first. Also Neo Bowser City. Nothing happened, I just love doing this part on 200cc. It always feels cool. Oh, silly me, I just remembered my biggest mistake was believing I could place well in Sky Garden, and thinking that the mushrooms on Mushroom Gorge wouldn't find a way to screw me over. and whatever this was on Athens Dash. And taking this turn too early on 3DS Rainbow Road, costing me first. I crossed the finish line for Wii Rainbow Road, except this time the script is flipped and first is stolen from me. I am now finished with Mario Kart 8. I thought I would have been able to finish Mario Kart 8 and possibly start Mario Kart 7 on our first day. And in a way, my prediction was pretty close. I was just around 47 minutes off, and I would have needed to play Mario Kart 8 for the entire day non-stop. But pretty close nonetheless. And we are now able to move on to our next game, Mario Kart 7. What can I say? No, seriously, what can I say about this game? This game is just Mario Kart 8 without the zero gravity sections. So it's just like 90% of Mario Kart 8. And luckily for me, it's not as big. For reference, Mario Kart 8 was a total of 480 races. This game is only going to have 128. So I should be able to finish this game in around the same time it took me to complete 50cc in Mario Kart 8.
We're back to the slows.
And going back to 50cc after 200cc in Mario Kart 8 was pretty boring. But I saw it as a good way to learn the tracks that I never really had a chance to play before. And a good way to learn about the item balancing in this game. Because just by finishing the first cup, I'd quickly learn that I would be getting hit by items way more than in Mario Kart 8. And as a reminder, this is 50cc,
Mario Kart 8.
The easy mode.
I didn't expect it, but it might actually end up being harder. Hey, my first blue shell. Oh, that feels more violent than it does in Mario Kart 8. Another one? I'm sorry, already?
Something that surprised me is how well this game handled compared to Mario Kart 8, especially during the glider sections.
Oh, okay, that is very different than it is in Mario Kart 8.
I breeze through the first cup and get my first gold trophy.
First gold cup. I think we're gonna need to like all gold something. We're gonna have to all gold something in order to get the mirror mode. I don't remember if it's 100cc or 150.
And good thing I brought that up, because Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is a bit of a special game. You see, it's a re-release of the Wii U version. And because of that, Nintendo decided you don't need to unlock anything. Any characters, or more importantly for this challenge, Grand Prix and engine classes. That isn't gonna fly from this point on, because only older games require that you get some amount of gold trophies to unlock certain cups or modes. I easily completed the rest of the tracks, getting first place in all my races on 50cc in less than 2 hours. I then took a short break and begun 100cc. At 100cc, I felt that I was evenly matched with the CPUs, which might be a bit of a problem considering that I still have 2 harder modes to play. But for the time being, it hasn't stopped me from getting first place finishes consistently, except on Cheep Cheep Lagoon, where I got 5th. But we'll just ignore that for now. I locked in on the next track and finished the cup with 34 points, just enough to get gold. The next cup was basically the same thing. Most tracks I could get first, even with a few mistakes and some shells hitting me. But on Rock Rock Mountain, it was just too much near the end and I had to settle for 3rd. The Star Cup was my first perfect cup at 100cc, but it was a bit of a nail-biter at the end of Maka Woohoo. I was racing very well for the Special Cup, first on DK Jungle and Rosalina's Ice World. But on Bowser's Castle, I took a turn too wide, bumped into this wall, and fell off the track. So I had to settle for 2nd. With the first on Rainbow Road, I still got the gold. The closest race for the Shell Cup was Mushroom Gorge, and that was only because of a poorly timed blue shell. Make that 2 poorly timed blue shells. I got first place during all 4 Banana Cup races. But this still wasn't as good as the points would make you believe. Because on Mario Circuit 2, Donkey Kong was off my screen, but still right behind me for about half of the final lap. And one of the cars in the parking lot gifted me first place on Coconut Mall. Luckily, none of the races were that close during the Leaf Cup, so it was an easy gold for me. And the Lightning Cup was another easy one. The closest race was Dino Dino Jungle, where the CPUs were able to get a lead around halfway through the lap. But the glider into the last turn made it pretty easy to get back into first place each time. I take another short break and then get started on 150cc. And shortly after I started my first race, I found out that the CPUs were just faster than me on a straightaway. But I can race better than them. I start the race behind, but I managed to make my way to first before the final lap. And then a blue shell comes at me. Whoops. And shortly after that, I started my second race. And I found out the CPUs were just faster than me on a straightaway, but I can race better than them. Basically, if the track didn't have a ton of turns to build up mini turbos or ramps to trick off of, I really had no chance of getting first. Like here in Shy Guy Bazaar, where Yoshi got a pretty large lead at the beginning. And I just could not close the gap because there were not enough turns for me to build up mini turbos. Also, blue shells really suck in this game. In Mario Kart 8, the blue shell was just a slightly stronger red that goes for first. In this game, it basically guarantees that you'll lose your lead. Honestly, even though this mode is clearly harder, I think I'm doing better now than I was doing in 100cc. I got 4th instead of 5th in Cheep Cheep Lagoon, and I got 2nd on Woohoo Loop. But other than that, it's all been first place. I'm almost at the halfway point in 150cc. All I need is to finish my favorite track in the game, Rainbow Road, I love how this one really tests your skills. If you're good at this game, you'll never fall off. Let's just get this over with. It's now time for the retro tracks. I start Luigi Circuit, fight my way to first, and keep it until the end. And then I restart the Grand Prix for some reason, and I get fourth this time. I just wanted it to be known that I got first on my first try. First place in the other 3 tracks means that it doesn't matter, and I'm still wondering to this day why I restarted the cup. I keep playing through the rest of the cups getting first after first, until I get hit by a blue shell late on Daisy Cruiser, and then a green. But on the bright side, I just barely beat Toad into second. Up next was Maple Treeway, where a little bad driving meant that I had to start the 3rd lap in 5th place. I once again managed to fight my way back into first before the final straight. And then 2 races later, I made an even bigger mistake and end up in 8th. And once again, slowly fight my way back into first. And for a 3rd time, I make another mistake, sending me into 6th. Luckily, this time it's less of a fight and more of a waltz into first. And I officially finished 150cc with an even better record than in 100cc. And for those keeping track, that's 24 gold trophies in a row for Mario Kart 7. There were no noticeable differences between 150cc and mirror mode, at least not within the game. You see, after roughly 30 hours of Mario Kart over the course of 8 days, I was pretty tired of Mario Kart, and this was the longest I had played in a single day. So my performance wasn't very good. 6th on Daisy Hills, 2nd on Shy Guy Bazaar, 4th on Rock Rock Mountain, 2nd on Maka-Woohoo, Rosalina's Ice World, and Bowser's Castle, and 3rd on Rainbow Road. I picked up my act a little on the retro tracks, getting first on all but Kalimari Desert and Maple Treeway. I crossed my final finish line for Mario Kart 7 and just spammed A to get through the cutscene as quickly as possible. I was done. In the end, I finished Mario Kart 7 in just under 7 hours. It was very fun without items because at 100cc and above, it felt like I was somewhat evenly matched with the CPUs. It was also very fun to not be stuck on the same game for multiple days. I had a goal with this game, and that was to show that it was possible for me to finish a game in a day, and to make as much progress on this challenge as possible. And now we move on to the best-selling Mario Kart of all time, Mario Kart Wii. And even though we are just barely starting the 3rd game, we are already near the halfway point of the challenge. Once again, 50cc is the Weenie Hut Jr. difficulty, but it's still good for getting used to the differences between the games. And the first big change is the items. Dodging them is much easier in this game, but if you get hit, it hurts bad. It also takes forever to get back up to speed. And one mistake I constantly made because I was being stubborn was starting to drive after getting hit instead of charging up a standstill mini turbo. And because the invincibility time is shorter, there's a big chance you'll be hit by another item and have to start accelerating all over again. And the item balancing is pretty crazy. It's just constant shells, shocks, and pows. The next thing is just how good bikes, specifically inward drifting bikes are, because they can take really tight turns and do wheelies. But getting bumped by opponents while wheeling could very easily knock you off the course or slow you down to a near stop. Now because 50cc doesn't allow you to use bikes, I use the Wild Wing. It looks fast, which must mean it's fast. And the last thing about Mario Kart Wii's 50cc is that the CPUs are slightly more difficult than 7 or 8s. So at the very end of the Nitro tracks, I choked and didn't 3-star every Grand Prix. The retro tracks were pretty simple, and I managed to get used to this game pretty quickly. A ton of items were still getting sent my way each race. Some races more than others. And it wasn't until my last track at 50cc where I finally decided to start using the faster way of getting back up to speed after getting hit. Now that I was in 100cc and I was able to use a bike, I decided to go with Luigi on the Mach bike, because that is one of the best combos available at the start of the game. And just like the other game's 100cc, this is where the game started to feel like a Mario Kart game. Seriously though, I really could not get much separation from the pack. Unless the CPUs decided to cannibalize each other and forget about me. And I got to find this out immediately on Luigi Circuit, where this was the closest I got to getting first on the track. Now I stopped doing the standstill mini turbos after I got hit because I was focusing too much on making sure that I was in a wheelie as much as possible. And that made me fall off the track quite a bit on Grumble Volcano. But I started doing it again somewhat consistently on Dry Dry Ruins. Rainbow Road was a bit of a disaster. I start by burning out, and then I thought the race was over at the end of the second lap. Luckily I realized what I was doing pretty quickly. But with a shell hitting me in the middle of my last lap, my lead was non-existent. Luckily I was able to dodge a second shell by having it fall off the track, and a blue shell by being in the cannon. But I fell off the track right before the finish line, and by the time I got back on the track, I was already in third with no way to gain my lead back. This time I swept all of my races in the Retro Cups, but some still had more exciting endings. On Yoshi Falls, I got hit by a shell shortly before starting my final lap, and I was able to get my lead back just in time to get hit by a blue shell. Luckily, I was just faster on the final straight with my wheelie and was able to just barely get first. I start Waluigi Stadium with a burnout, and then managed to fight my way back in first by the end of the first lap. And halfway through the race, I have this massive lead. There's no way I can mess this up. Then a blue shell comes my way and makes that lead a little smaller. Then a red shell shrinks it a little more. A blue shell and a POW close the gap a little more. Some lightning gives the CPUs a bit more help. And then I get in on it and get stuck on this piranha plant for 3.5 seconds, before another red and blue shell put me neck and neck with Wario and Baby Peach. Baby Mario comes to my rescue and hits both Wario and Baby Peach with items, making sure that I still get first. The next race, I was unable to get into first for almost the entire first 2 laps. And shortly after I do, I get hit by a red shell to make sure I don't get too far away. And then I get too far away, so 2 more red shells for me. I still got first. And once again, I burn out at the starting line. Now I'm in 12th. And I get back into first before the halfway point of the track. This should be easy, right? This perfectly timed blue shell would beg to differ, but that only sent me back to 3rd. This green shell that I forgot about sent me even further back to 6th. Some inattentive driving, and now I'm in 9th. I start making my way back and then get hit by the lava. Luckily, I only lost that 1 spot. And now I have just 1 lap to catch up to Toad, who's a quarter of a lap in front of me. I slowly make my way up by taking the inside corner of turns, and with the final ramp I can trick and just get enough of a boost to take first place back. And that's all for 100cc. 150cc was fun. If by fun you mean... Mirror mode was also fun. Seriously though, these races were hard. I could no longer just front run in spite of items being thrown at me. I was front running because no items were thrown at me, which barely ever happened. I was still getting first on most tracks, though I did tend to struggle a lot before getting into first. And I struggled a lot more when I missed a mushroom on Mushroom Gorge. And this crazy green shell ricochet on Yoshi Falls, running into Bowser Jr. while he was trailing green shells on GameCube Mario Circuit, and this bomb sending me to 11th on the last lap of SNES Mario Circuit 3. And for mirror mode, getting sent to 11th on Mario Circuit and almost being able to make my way back. Continuously falling off of Rainbow Road, missing the trick on the little ramp on Ghost Valley 2 and being unable to catch up. A blue shell red shell combo on DK's Jungle Parkway, and just some good old-fashioned bad driving on GameCube Mario Circuit. Those 2 bad races were enough to give me my first and only silver trophy in Mario Kart Wii. I guess we'll add them to the pile. And before I even started 150cc, I was starting to have wrist pain from having to spam the up button for wheeling. And it was getting even worse at this point. And one last super important thing. I really like this part of Shy Guy Beach where you have to use drift to jump so you can maintain your speed. That's all. Mario Kart Wii took me 6 hours and 40 minutes, bringing my total up to 38 hours and 16 minutes. On to the next game, Mario Kart DS. I've only ever played this game as Shy Guy on the standard cart in the battle mode using the DS's wireless play. So this is my first time actually racing in the game. The only thing I know beforehand is that from this point on, drifting is completely different in the games. Instead of tighter angles giving you the boost faster, mashing between left and right gives you the boost faster. So let's start. But first, this is the only game where you can draw an emblem that goes on the front of all your carts. And there's only one thing that I know how to draw when given complete freedom. Now we can start. 50cc once again is going to be the mode where I learn to get used to how different this game is going to be from the others. And the first thing I find out is that the timing for the rocket boost is slightly different once again. In this game, it's around when the 2 starts fading. But I don't get this timing right for a while. Another thing is that getting adjusted to the new way of drifting is going to take a while. The last few games got me used to starting drifts pretty early. and the combination of being on a D-pad and having to rock back and forth between left and right makes it really hard to get a precise angle. I also tried snaking. It didn't go well. After one lap, I'm already getting better at drifting, and I use that to catch up to DK. And thanks to a rogue green shell, I'm now in first. Not even 2 minutes into the new game, and I am already being hit by my first blue shell. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be as punishing as the newer games. And a red shell shortly after continues the trend, because I am still able to go forward, albeit a bit slower, after being hit. And it was not until Cheep Cheep Beach that I was reminded of the greatest contribution that Mario Kart Wii made to the series. Tricks. Mario Kart DS and all the games before don't allow you to do tricks off ramps, and this just makes them all feel limp and pointless. Another thing that I noticed pretty quickly was that getting hit by items was not as common as it was in Mario Kart Wii, and the game just felt less chaotic in general. At this point, I thought I had drifting down. Luigi's Mansion proved otherwise. It wasn't until my third lap that I realized that maybe drifting on every small turn wasn't for me. But that's my first cup. I kept playing through the others, and they were more of the same. As time went on, I kept getting better at handling the karts, and I realized just how good the new tracks were for this game. It had Delfino Square, Shroom Ridge, DK Pass. We don't talk about that one. Its Mario Circuit is one of the best. Airship Fortress, Bowser's Castle, and him. Its Rainbow Road is a bit boring. Oh my god, you can drive upside down! And then there's the retro tracks. Most of the good retro tracks were just from Double Dash, and half of the tracks are just these multicolored blocks. And the tracks are short and don't have much going on. 100cc. After getting used to drifting in 50cc, and half the nitro tracks at 100cc, I thought I was in the clear. But drifting at these higher speeds is definitely harder. And the track that made this clear to me was DK Pass. Going up the mountain was full of mistakes. I would stop the drift early and lose the mini turbo. I would start my drifts too early and crash into a wall. Sometimes I would start my drift the wrong way because I would start moving the D-pad left and right before the drift started. And when I got to the end, I would always run into the snowman because I was not accurate enough to go between them. All this made me lose a bit of confidence when drifting, so I stopped drifting as much. And that meant I would receive a 4th place finish for this track. And seeing how quickly this game could make drifting very difficult made me very worried for how it might be at 150cc. But that loss sparked something in me, and I started trying just a little bit harder at this point. I was basically making no mistakes. Not none, but basically none. And if the CPUs wanted first, they had to fight for it. And they didn't put up much of a fight. They only managed to beat me another 2 times. Once on Rainbow Road, and another on Sky Garden. The Rainbow Road loss was full of just enough items to stop me from catching up to first by the end of the race, but the Sky Garden loss was all on me. I fell off early in the race, meaning that I would have to catch up from pretty far behind, and I thought I could do that by going for shortcuts, but all they did was slow me down more than they would help, and I would keep drifting off the road, slowing me down even more after drifting. In the end, these losses didn't even matter because I still got all gold trophies for this engine class. Just like when I first started 100cc, I fully expected drifting to be harder in 150cc. But because the first few tracks are pretty wide, I didn't get to feel that increased difficulty until Luigi's Mansion. This section in the mansion feels like it's impossible to take this turn and hold a drift at these speeds. I pretty much always ran into a wall, but that one section was not enough, and I was still able to race well enough to sweep the cup. As expected, the CPUs were also harder to race against at these speeds. Because of this, I would be handed my first loss in entire cup sooner. During the middle of the second lap of Desert Hills, Yoshi just disappeared. I didn't see him for the rest of the race. And it didn't matter how well I raced after that point, I had no chance of catching up. The remaining races in the Grand Prix were a piece of cake. A very tough, glutinous, overworked piece of cake. Have you ever had a dinosaur riding an egg harass you while racing in the middle of a town square? I still beat him. The other 2 tracks were a completely different story. As soon as I got away from the pack, it was easy. Another Grand Prix done. And now we're back to DK Pass. I still struggled. I ran into snowmen every lap, so I decided on my final lap to take the last turn wide. And with some luck, I managed to get first. Tick-tock clock was easy. I fell off at the start of lap 2, and almost at the end of lap 3, but I was still able to finish in first with a pretty large gap between me and second. And then it was Mario Circuit's turn. At the very end, just before the final 2 turns, Toad barely bumps me off the road, but just enough to slow me down and not have enough time to catch up. I end up with a 2nd place. And then, for whatever reason, I restart the cup. Now, it might be easy to assume I rage quit, but on my next try I got 2nd on DK Pass, 1st on Tick-Tock Clock, and 1st on Mario Circuit, so I still ended up with the same amount of points. Either way, this time I actually continue to Airship Fortress, and I get the lead back pretty early and don't let go. I would have no more problems until Rainbow Road. I got bumped off shortly after the race started, sending me to 8th. And then just before the 3rd lap, I would get shocked in the middle of turning, causing me to spin out off the road, sending me back to 8th. And I would only be able to work my way back up to 5th. I only had 5 retro tracks that I struggled with this time. The first was Mario Circuit 1. This track is so short that I just did not have enough time to catch up to Bowser, and this one green shell sealed the deal. 2nd place. After that was Donut Plains 1, another very short track. This time I managed to get into 1st, and then I started driving terribly once the final lap started. Luckily, a blue shell got both Waluigi and DK just before the finish line. 1st place. In Bowser Castle 2, I started in the middle of the pack. And the middle of the pack is where I stayed, 3rd place. Choco Island 2. I don't want to talk about it. Now I said that I struggled on 5 tracks, and that wasn't exactly true. I got 1st on Sky Garden, but my driving was still pretty bad. I burnt out once again, and I kept driving into the clouds on the side of the road. I was just lucky that my mini turbo at the last 2 turns was just enough to barely beat Peach. Once again, mirror mode was the same as 150cc, with 2 big differences. On the Special Cup, I would start out with the 4th place finish on Wario Stadium, throw in 1st place finishes on Peach Gardens and Bowser's Castle, and I was 2 points behind 1st place. As long as I beat Peach, I would end up with gold. And lucky for me, Peach finished in 4th place. Can you guess what I got? 8th. So how did we get here? I fell off the track once again, and I ended up in 8th pretty early. And I would slowly work my way up back to 4th, before falling off once again. This time I only ended up in 7th. And I pulled the single most tempting item in the game. The self-restraint I needed to not use this shock was just barely hanging on by a thread. This time I was only able to get up to 5th. And just before the finish line, I saw her. I just needed to get in front of her. And then... 8th place. And with that, I got my first bronze in this challenge. It didn't really matter though, because the points didn't work the way I thought, and I would have still ended up 2nd by 1 point. The other large difference was getting 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and 2nd 1st place finishes in the Banana Cup, and getting my first silver for this game. I didn't really care. This was shortly after getting my first bronze. Until I went to the Grand Prix selection and I realized that I needed to get gold to unlock the Leaf Cup. So I went back and got 1st, 2nd, 1st, and 1st place finishes in order to move on. And that's pretty much all for this game. This was the shortest game so far, taking exactly 6 hours to finish, and I have now spent 44 hours and 16 minutes of my life playing children's games. Next game, Mario Kart Double Dash. I know nothing about this game except that there are 2 racers and 2 exclamation points in the title for some reason. Let's start. Once again, I'm going to be using the 50cc mode for learning the intricacies of this game. And what better place to start than the starting line? I go for the starting boost and... my timing might have been off a little. Oh well, I guess I'll start the race a little late. One thing I noticed pretty quickly is that the drifting seems pretty similar to how it was in Mario Kart DS, but it's just different enough that I like how it feels in this game better. And it also makes chaining drifts easier. Hopefully it doesn't get too hard in the faster engine classes. I finished my first race in Luigi Circuit and start the next race. I tried getting the starting boost again and I am still missing it. So I start ignoring the boost for now. It wasn't until Sherbet Land that I finally found out that you need to start pressing A as soon as the word start pops up to get the boost. Though after 4 Mario Karts of starting to press A around 2, I still fell back into old habits and burn out from time to time. I played through the first 3 cups and get gold on all of them, so I go back expecting to see the special cup unlocked, and nothing. Apparently you have to beat the Star Cup on 100cc to get it unlocked for all speeds. So on we go to 100cc. Double Dash's 100cc was easily the largest jump in difficulty and chaos so far. I was finishing each Grand Prix with just enough first to finish first in the cup. And because of my current skill level, my only hope was just being barely faster than the CPUs during straightaways. And it didn't help that there were a ton of items all over the track slowing me down. Bananas, fake item boxes, mushrooms, shells, and stars from the CPUs getting hit by other CPUs. And that's not to mention these giant shells that are constantly being thrown by Bowser and Bowser Jr. And the CPUs are actually good at sniping me with green shells and bananas. Now, because of my subpar placements in the mushroom cups, I decided to switch off Luigi and Waluigi, and into Bowser Jr. and Diddy Kong for the flower cup, and it seemed to help a little. I got a 3rd place finish on Mushroom Bridge, 1st on Mario Circuit and Daisy Cruiser, and 2nd on Waluigi Stadium, but it still wasn't enough for gold, so I changed again into Yoshi and Birdo for the Star Cup. My reasoning for this was they were the ones that just beat me during the flower cup, so they must be good. This theory was strengthened when I got 1st on Sherbet Land, and instantly disproved with a 3rd on Mushroom City. And a 2nd on Yoshi Circuit meant that I had no chance of getting gold on this cup. because of one of my many gripes with this game. Save for extremely rare occasions, you really only have one rival per Grand Prix, and if you aren't the one finishing in first, they will. I finished first on DK Mountain, and as I said earlier, this was not enough for me to get gold on the Star Cup. And because you needed to get gold on the Star Cup in order to unlock the Special Cup, I had to go back into the Star Cup to try again. But this time I had experience playing these tracks at these speeds. I was able to get gold on my second try with 2 firsts, a third, and another first place finish. And finally, I had it. The Special Cup. Getting gold on the Star Cup unlocked it for all engine classes. But since I was working on 100cc right now, I decided I'd do it there and then go back to 50cc after. First off was Wario Coliseum, and I'm actually impressed at how well I raced for my first time. I managed to get into second pretty early on and started cutting into first place's lead, and I was able to get into first just before the big jump towards the end. A red shell was coming to stop me, but it was too late, and I tumbled into the finish line. Up next was Dino Dino Jungle, and this race was just disastrous. It started off well, I was in second, I managed to dodge 2 green shells that were thrown at me in quick succession, before falling off the road and ending the first lap in 4th place. On the next lap, I tried to go for the faster bridge route, but I fell off. Now in 5th, I make my way to the cave, and fell off again. Now in 8th place, I know I have no real chance of placing well with only 1 lap left. I managed to pass 7th place, and almost 6th, but DK had a mushroom, so 7th will do. As customary, the second to last track is Bowser's Castle, and I started this race off pretty well. I got into second pretty early, but I fell off the track about halfway through. Now in 4th place, I see the Koopa team in front of me, and just before the start of lap 2, I passed them. Now Peach and Daisy are in front of me, but they were able to stay ahead for about an entire lap. I managed to pass them in the middle of the Womp segment, and now it's just Mario and Luigi with 3/4 of a lap to go. Just like Peach and Daisy, they managed to stay ahead. But just before the U-turn, I have vision of them, and once we reach the section with Bowser, they hit a banana and spin out, giving me a chance to take first. Luckily, it's almost impossible to make mistakes on the final part of the track, and I get first place. Now I have 21 points, second has 22, and first has 24. I'm really fighting for second place because of the rival thing I mentioned earlier. I started off Rainbow Road by falling off, but it wasn't my fault this time. Peach threw a green shell at me, and I didn't have time to react. I'm in 4th place now, but I quickly get into 3rd, and I catch up to 2nd shortly after that. Just before the start of lap 2, I pass them too. Right after that, I see Peach and Daisy, and I pass them too. Just like that, 1 lap later, I'm in 1st, and then I fell off again. This time it was my fault, and this time I was dropped off just behind 2nd place. Again, I make my way past them, and just in front of us, Peach and Daisy are caught on a wall. So it was easy to pass them, but a fake item box and a banana put all 3 of us neck and neck entering the final lap. A shock affects them more than me for some reason, and I pass them pretty easily. The boost panel sections allow me to widen the gap between us, and I finish in 1st, allowing me to get silver for the 100cc Special Cup. Now back to 50cc for the Special Cup. It was very easy. That's all. And now, the nightmare begins. I don't know how simple speed change can make this game from one of the best feeling Mario Karts to one of the worst. It feels like every track is covered in ice with how slippery turning is, whether I'm drifting or not. And don't get me started with how this game approaches difficulty. There is no rubber banding like in some of the other games. If you get a large lead, you keep it, like I did here on Peach Beach. But that logic goes both ways. If one of the CPUs has a lead, unless you get really lucky, you really have no chance of getting near them again. The weight classes are insane, a slight touch makes you lose all of your speed and get bumped off. Other racers come out of nowhere, and there's no real item invincibility period. All of this resulted in me not winning the Flower Cup, because I received a sad 15 points during it, putting me 2 points away from 3rd place. So I went back to try again, and I managed to perform better this time, though it's hard to perform worse without actually trying to be bad at this game. On the next cup, I actually performed relatively well in my first try. I got 2nd in Sherbet Land, 3rd on Mushroom City, and 1st on Yoshi Circuit, and I was doing pretty well on DK Mountain before I was bumped off of the bridge. I ended up in 4th for DK Mountain and 2nd in the Grand Prix, allowing me to move on. And this is where the real nightmare begins. I need to finish this cup in 1st place in order to unlock the all-cup tours for each engine class. I managed to make my way into 2nd just before starting the final lap of Wario Coliseum, and Bowser is just barely ahead of me. And shortly after entering the spiral, a blue shell hits Bowser and Koopa, but it also just barely hits me too. I'm still able to recover faster, but I end up falling off the track on the next turn. I managed to get back into 2nd, and I have Bowser in my sights, but we were too close to the end and I just couldn't catch up. I would need to be absolutely perfect for the rest of the Grand Prix in order to finish 1st. And after an abysmal Dino Dino Jungle, I decided just to restart. And once again, I fell off at the same spot while in 3rd place. I basically had no chance of winning the cup because of this, so I retried again. I decided to go with a heavier combination, and I finished Wario Coliseum in 3rd this time. I don't know why I continued when I basically had no chance of getting first after this, but I fell off the bridge in Dino Dino Jungle and restarted anyways, saving myself a good amount of time. And then I fell off again. I was so annoyed at this point that I just quit, stopped recording, took a little break, and practiced off cam. I came back a little later with a different combination. Baby Luigi and Koopa on the Koopa Dasher. This combination should help me out with recovering from getting hit or any mistakes. And it should have handled pretty well. I finished in 3rd, and my chances of winning are slim, but I could still use the practice. And I get first on Dino Dino Jungle, mainly because I only almost fell off once, bringing my confidence up a little. I fall off and get bumped off the track a few times in Bowser's Castle, so I get 5th. But again, I keep going to practice Rainbow Road, and somehow after falling off 3 times, I'm still able to finish in 2nd, bringing my confidence up for this track too. My bad performances in Wario Coliseum and Bowser's Castle mean that I only got 27 points, while first got 32. So I have to go in again and aim for first place. On Wario Coliseum, I quickly get into 2nd before being hit by a red shell after this ramp. Now in 4th, I managed to get back into 2nd before the start of the final lap. And it wasn't until that same ramp that I basically got target shocked. But somehow it helped me more than anyone else, because I still made the landing onto the boost panel, allowing me to get back up to speed before anyone else. And because this was so close to the end of the race, I was able to carry that lead to the finish line. Dino Dino Jungle was basically the same as last time. It's surprisingly easy to end up in first if you don't fall off the track multiple times per lap. And halfway through the Grand Prix, I had 20 points, and 2nd and 3rd were tied at 14. At this point, I didn't have much pressure. I could win the Grand Prix with 2 second place finishes, which is why on lap 3 the game decided this would happen. A 4th place finish, and now I am tied at 24 points. I need first place on Rainbow Road to guarantee unlocking the All Cup Tours. And boy did I deliver. A good boost at the start immediately puts me into 2nd place, but a bad second turn means Luigi and Bowser, the team I need to beat, widens the gap between us. But I get to take the lead after this windy section, and I get to dodge this red shell by hugging the outside wall while turning, and I dodged this red shell by just being good at the game, I guess. And this red shell most likely broke on this banana. And to top it all off, I dodged the shock by being in the cannon. I entered lap 3 with a massive lead that 2 blue shells could only do so much to narrow. I crossed the finish line and I am presented with my gold trophy. After taking another short break, I began the All Cup Tours. The All Cup Tours are a bit different from all the other Grand Prix in the series. You're basically signing up to play all of the tracks back to back in random order. It takes about an hour to complete, but you get a sick trophy out of it. I got perfect scores in the 50 and 100cc, so those were kind of a waste of time. So let's use the 150cc All Cup Tour to talk about all the tracks in the game. Because when it comes to the new track that each new Mario Kart brings to the table, this one wins hands down. It has so many memorable tracks like Yoshi's Circuit and its shortcut that I knew existed, but I didn't know exactly where it was. I found out while editing you need a mushroom for it and it doesn't save time, so that ruins a bit of the charm. Waluigi Stadium with plenty of jumps and obstacles, the best Bowser's Castle, Daisy Cruiser, DK Mountain, Mushroom City which still hasn't been remade somehow, Mushroom Bridge, Wario Coliseum which also hasn't been remade, Dinosaur, and an amazing Rainbow Road to top it all off. Now I didn't race extremely well throughout this cup, so I only had a 3-point lead above 2nd place. And I think I need to get gold in this cup to unlock mirror mode. So if I want to make sure I didn't just waste an hour of my time, I need to place well during this race. I start off a little worse than last time in 4th place, but I have something going for me this time. Experience. And these 3 red shells. And heart palpitations. But somehow none of the items that hit me did enough damage for me to lose my lead. And I got gold on the 150cc All Cup Tour. And more importantly, I didn't have to try again to unlock mirror mode. At this point, I had everything unlocked, and I had experience playing these tracks at these speeds, so I was really under no pressure for these cups. But just because there was no pressure didn't mean I wouldn't try to perform well. I had a perfect Mushroom Cup, followed by a perfect Flower Cup, followed by an almost perfect Star Cup. It was about time that the blue shell ruined a race during this game. And it was also about time that I felt some pressure, because I started the Special Cup with a 3rd place finish in Wario Coliseum, and a 2nd in Dino Dino Jungle. Luckily, this little gap cut in Bowser's Castle let me build up a lead, and this perfectly fine star that someone left on the floor let me dodge a blue shell so I could keep my lead. I was entering Rainbow Road with a 14-point lead over 4th place, so I basically had no way of losing at this point, but I still had a chance of getting first, so I still tried, and won. All I had left was the All Cup Tour for mirror mode, and that would be all for this game. And to save time, I'll just show you the final score. Out of a total of 160 points, I got 146, putting me 24 points above 2nd place, giving me first by a fairly large margin. It's a shame that I only got good at this game right as I have to move on to the next. And after playing this game for 7 hours and 5 minutes, I could easily see why this is the most divisive game in the series. And it's also kind of sad I couldn't experience this game fully. A big emphasis on this game is the items. That's why you have 2 racers. And being the only person in each race unable to use items was infuriating. This game was hard, and they only get harder from here. Because finally, after 51 hours and 21 minutes, we're going to start the hardest and 3rd game in the series, Mario Kart Super Circuit. We're getting close to the end, and luckily, the games start getting smaller from this point on. This game is based off of Super Mario Kart more so than Mario Kart 64, its direct predecessor. But I've heard it's another good entry in the series. Let's jump right into 50cc. First of all, drifting is hard. And some advice I've heard is that it's just better to not drift when you don't absolutely need to. So I'm going to avoid drifting as much as possible. Also, I hope it's painfully obvious, but I am struggling to get used to turning in this game. I ran into trees 3 times during my first race, but because the 50cc mode in this game is pretty easy, I had plenty of chances to finish first. And I took advantage of that, finishing most races in first, and collecting coins along the way. I don't know how much these help during the races, but I know I need to finish each cup with 100 or more coins to unlock the extra cup. So I just finished the special cup. Where are the extra cups? About that. Remember how I said starting from this point on the games would start getting smaller? Well, apparently not. Because in order to unlock the extra cups, you need to complete the special cup, and then go back and collect 100 more coins in each cup. So I go ahead and do that, driving through all of the tracks again, except this time making an effort to collect as many coins as I can. And during the extra tracks, I actually start managing to lap the CPUs again, which I haven't been able to do for a while. And during the extra flower cup, I learned how to perform the start boost. Or, to be more accurate, I learned that this game even has a start boost. And once again, they changed it for no real reason. This time you have to start holding A halfway between 1 and go. Now, these extra cups are just the Super Mario Kart tracks remade. They look much better simply because they are using the Super Circuit assets, though sometimes it feels weird seeing a Donut Plains level with a jungle background. And some of the levels just feel very barren because they have no obstacles where they should be. Especially the Bowser Castle levels, as well as Rainbow Road. But that's really it to these levels. They are nowhere near the difficulty or length of the new tracks, so I'm just breezing past them. Except for Koopa Beach 2, which I had to restart. But that's just because I didn't know the route I was supposed to take and kept falling into the pits. And that's all for 50cc. All gold cups. And I'm ready to move on to 100cc. Because I was getting better at this game, I didn't really feel an increase in difficulty during 100cc. One of the things I learned during 50cc that helped me a lot here was finding out the best way to turn this game without drifting. Because if you just keep accelerating while turning, you will just not turn tight enough. But not accelerating is slow. So I found alternating between turning and accelerating on most turns to be faster. Now as I've been collecting the cups, I've been checking if the extra cups were unlocking. And they weren't. I was still holding out hope that they would unlock after beating the special cup, but I ran into a small problem. I got silver on the star cup, which meant no special cup for me. So I went back and won. It's crazy how much playing these tracks just 1 extra time helps. Now I can start the special cup and... since it's the first track, it's not worth it to try again. I just quit and restart the cup and... the next time I don't even wait to finish. I just fell off the track and restarted. And finally I beat the first track. I quickly followed that up with a second on Broken Pier, alongside another second for Bowser Castle 4. That, alongside a 4th place finish in Rainbow Road, left me 11 points shy of 1st place. I think I need gold to start unlocking the extra cups, so I'll have to go back and try again. But it was around this time, 11 days in, that I started to get burnt out on Mario Kart. I'm surprised I lasted this long, but it was unreasonable to think I could play Mario Kart for so many hours per day consistently. So at this point, I just started playing in small amounts throughout the day. After 3 attempts that were all destroyed by a bad Bowser Castle 4, I finally had a good lakeside park. And my Broken Pier was pretty consistent at this point, so I was entering Bowser Castle 4 with a 6-point lead, and I was racing pretty well, before I inevitably make another mistake, and then another. Now in 4th place with half the race to go, I had to somehow find a way into 1st. Luckily, straightaways are my friend at this game, allowing me to get right next to Toad and push them into the lava, giving me an easy 1st place finish. Now all that's left is Rainbow Road, and because I had a 12-point lead, all I needed to do was finish top 4 for the race to count. So I finally beat the special cup, and the extra cups are still not unlocked. So I need to go back and race all of the Grand Prix again. I didn't record this because I really didn't need 45 minutes of footage of something I already did. So poof! Just like that, they're unlocked. And just like that, they're completed. Onto 150cc. I have 2 words to describe 150cc. very hard. I was able to complete the first 2 cups, but I was still struggling quite a bit, and that caught up to me after the Flower Cup. After that, I couldn't place above 4th. I attempted the Lightning Cup 5 times before realizing that I would now need to learn how to drift in this game. And another 2 attempts after that to finally place better than 4th on Luigi Circuit. But I still sucked at Sky Garden, so I had to go and practice each track individually using Quick Race for 2 hours before I was able to beat the Lightning Cup with 30 points. And after seeing how much that helped, I practiced the Star Cup tracks for about an hour before attempting that. And I picked up a few things like purposefully driving off the road for better traction during the turns on Snowland. Ribbon Road is hard no matter how many times I practice it, a burning hatred for Yoshi Desert, and realized that having a conscience makes you weak. I still kind of feel bad for what I did to Toad. But I did what I had to do, and I won the cup by 1 point. After beating the Star Cup, I realized I did not unlock the Special Cup, and I needed to go back and get gold in the Flower Cup. After 2 attempts, I got gold and was able to access the Special Cup at 150cc. Before attempting it, I went back to Quick Race to practice each track until I was confident. And after 2 hours, I attempted the Special Cup. It was pretty hard, so my first attempt didn't go so well. Wario was just faster than me most of the time. So I entered Rainbow Road 3 points behind, and I was just taking risks that I didn't need to take. So I fell off of the track and had to restart. On my second attempt, I made sure to use the boost panel right before the ramp to cut off most of the turn and easily make my way to first right before the finish on Lakeside Park. On Broken Pier, all I had to do was make sure that I took the straightest lines and the shortcut on each lap. And on Bowser Castle 4, I had to make sure that I manipulated the RNG to make the swamp fall down at this exact moment, stopping Toad just before the finish. Or I just got lucky. This time, I was entering Rainbow Road with a 12-point lead. Basically impossible to mess up at this point. I just need to finish Rainbow Road with 4th place or better. So what do? I take so many shortcuts that I don't need to take and fall off the road each time, meaning that I had to restart Rainbow Road. So the next time, I learn from my mistakes and don't take useless shortcuts. At least this time I didn't fall off. As many times. 4th place for my arrogance. But I ended up winning the cup with a fairly large margin, and then I went back to get 100 coins on each of the cups. It was at this point that I learned how large the skill ceiling in this game truly is, because after spending so much time practicing these tracks at 150cc, coming back to unlock the extra cups and winning again with over 100 coins was pretty easy. And finally, I was able to attempt my last stretch of cups for Super Circuit. At this point, the pressure was completely off. I no longer needed 1st place to unlock anything, so I was completely happy with finishing some of the races in 3rd or 4th place. And good thing I was okay with that because I did not spend any time practicing these tracks on 150cc. The first 2 extra cups were pretty easy. I won the extra mushroom and flower cups in first. But the other 3 were pretty difficult, having a lot of tight turns that the CPUs could get past pretty quickly. Also, I know I'm just kind of tacking this on to the end, but the change from Double Dash to this game just gave me whiplash. Going from the most chaotic and item-dependent game to easily the most skill-based and item-devoid game is just so insane. I originally thought that this was going to be the start of the games getting smaller, but I quickly found out I needed gold in the 4 main cups to unlock the Special Cup. And I needed to play all the cups again while collecting 100 coins after finishing the Special Cup in first to unlock the extra cups, for each engine class. In the end, it took me about 9 hours and 38 minutes to finish this game, and I have spent 60 hours and 59 minutes total so far. And now we are heading into the first 3D game in the series, Mario Kart 64. For sure, this one should start taking a lot less time. There are only 4 cups per engine class, and my placements don't matter too much for 50 and 100cc. But I will need to finish in first for all 4 150cc cups to unlock the extra mode, which is this game's mirror mode. Now I will be using Toad, which is one of the best characters in this game because I've heard this game has some of the worst rubber banding in the series. Another thing that should make this game easier is that we've already played the remade version of the tracks in this game already. Except for Wario Stadium, that one got Mandela affected. So the learning curve will hopefully not be too steep. So let's jump right in. As soon as I started the Mushroom Cup at 50cc, I could tell that the difficulty would once again be completely different. Right off the bat in Luigi Circuit, I had a peach on my tail the entire race. Something that barely happened in the other games at 50cc. I wasn't racing perfectly, but no matter how well I was racing during any given lap, the lead would disappear by the end. Moo Moo Farm was more of the same. This time Mario actually had a pretty decent lead on me at the end, but I still ended up in first place because of another issue the CPUs have. Items. Mainly banana peels. The CPUs in this game love running into items and seem to do so at any chance they have. So I got a pretty lucky break this time because it happened near the end. But on the next track, Koopa Troopa Beach, it was my turn. On the final stretch, just in front of the finish line, I barely grazed one of the crabs and started to spin out. This caused me to lose just enough speed and lose first to Yoshi by just under half a second. This is the point where the strategy of this game became clear to me. Perform well enough to hold or be near first for most of the race, and then be nothing short of perfect at the end. Because having a lead at any other point in the race does not matter. Your lead will be gone by the end, no matter how large. And now, the final track in the cup, Calamari Desert, which was just more of the same. The entire time I'm being trailed by both Mario and Peach. At the end, I get hit by an item causing me to lose my lead, but then Mario drives into a banana, giving me just enough time to regain the lead and finishing first, closing out the single most dramatic 50cc Mushroom Cup in the challenge. By comparison, the Flower Cup was much more tame. I was in the lead the entire time during Toad's Turnpike. I ran into a few obstacles in Frappy Snowland, causing me to temporarily lose first to Bowser, but I got it back near the end. Choco Mountain was the first time it was a three-way battle for first, and I barely got first because of this turn I took slightly better than the CPUs. And Mario Raceway was another one of those close, but not really close races where I never lost the lead for more than 1 or 2 seconds. But I still only finished fractions of a second faster than second place. The Star Cup follows the trend of the next cup being more boring than the last. Wario Stadium was a 5-minute slog with me at the front the entire time. And I now understand why we have a new Wario Stadium. Sherbet Land actually got kind of exciting towards the end, because I could not stop myself from falling off and hitting penguins, meaning that I was in 4th with about a quarter of a lap left, and somehow I ended up in 1st. In Royal Raceway, I figured out that you could do the thing where you tap B after running into Banana in order to not spin out, and the only interesting thing about Bowser's Castle is that I sucked at it. Still got 4th in it and finished the cup in 1st, so it doesn't matter. Yet. And now we are on to the final cup, the Special Cup. Starting off with DK's Jungle Parkway. I was able to get a decent lead near the start by just turning to the left during the cannon, but I lost that by the end of the lap because of the rubber banding. I did it again, but I lost that to about 5 pixels, throwing what looked to be durian fruits at me. I somehow regained my lead, and I kept it all the way to the end. Yoshi Valley confused me. I thought it would be like the Mario Kart 8 version, and I thought I was taking one of the faster routes, but Bowser still ended up ahead of me. So on the next lap I took the skinny route on the left, and that seemed to be the fastest, but that would definitely be much harder at the higher speeds. Up next, Banshee Boardwalk. Some bad turns at the end resulted in an absolute clincher at the finish line, that I barely lost by 1/100th of a second. And finally, Rainbow Road. I was able to get a decent lead at the beginning by jumping when the road starts going down, but once again that lead is evaporated by the end of each lap. This race was basically just 6 minutes and 33 seconds of Mario or Bowser being right behind me, ready to steal first at any moment. But not today. I got first and finished all 4 50cc cups in first on my first try. I really don't know how this game could get much harder. Every time I won, it was by the smallest of margins, despite the fact that I really was not running into very many items, or taking turns too badly. My first impression of 100cc is that it's very hard. I basically have the same issues that I did in 50cc, except that now I had someone breathing down my neck at all times, and if I made one mistake, I would not be able to finish in first. The room for error was so small already that I barely won the Mushroom Cup in first place. But not by point total. I got 33 out of 36 points. It just felt like every race was a photo finish. The Flower Cup was much worse than that. I started pretty poorly on Toad's Turnpike, and I ran into Bowser a bit too fast at the start. And now I had basically the impossible task of catching up to Yoshi from 8th place. And if you pay close attention, you could see that with no mistakes, I still didn't gain any ground on Yoshi for the entire race. Since making very few mistakes didn't work, I decided to do the opposite during Frappy Snowland. Somehow that didn't work either. I had to retry the course, and outside of barely tapping Wario and spinning out the start, I did pretty well. I still couldn't catch up to Yoshi though. The rest of the tracks were some more of the same. Make some mistakes, fall behind, and hope that something slows down the CPUs in front of you, because you won't make up ground otherwise. And by some miracle, I managed to get gold trophies on the remaining cups. It starts with Wario hitting the trailing banana near the end of Wario Stadium, and then I get absolutely wrecked in the tunnel of Sherbet Land, before making a comeback, only to have my dreams destroyed by this penguin. For some reason, Mario and Wario went off-roading during Royal Raceway. I won't complain. and all I needed to do was just place one position worse than Wario to win. I entered the final lap with Wario in first. I was in third, but by the time I was at the bridge, I was in fifth, and Wario was in second. I can only assume that Wario got stuck on something, and Mario was able to catch up right before the finish line, moving Wario down to third, and then Bowser was stopped by something too, giving me the chance to pass by and take fourth, just one position below Wario, and allowing me to win the cup by just 1 point. The special cup was not as exciting. I found out that this game also has a start boost. I always thought that this was a newer addition to the games, so I keep getting surprised that I keep finding it the earlier I go in the series. So after a first on DK Jungle Parkway, a second on Yoshi Valley that can only be explained by rubber banding, and a fourth on Banshee Boardwalk that can only be explained by me being terrible at this game, I was 2 points behind Donkey Kong, and if I wanted gold, I needed to beat him and him alone. So he managed to get pretty far ahead during the first lap, but in the middle of the second lap, first to third place were likely hit by a chain chomp, giving me an opportunity to just pass by them. At this point, it was just me and Bowser fighting for first. That was until Bowser just gave up, and gave me the win less than halfway through the final lap. I didn't even think it was possible to have a lead this big in the game. I cross the finish line, get my trophy, and just hope that 150cc is not as difficult as I think it's gonna be, because this was the most stressful 100cc in any of the games so far. In order to unlock mirror mode in this game, I am going to need to get gold on all 4 cups in 150cc, and I have no idea how I'm going to finish all 4 of these in first place. The Mushroom Cup was easy. I got first place in all the tracks except for Calamari Desert, where I got the glitch that keeps the CPU at the rubber banding speed, so Bowser was able to get very far ahead of me. The Flower Cup, on the other hand, just feels impossible. I tried to see if I could save a 4th place finish on Toad's Turnpike, before destroying any chances of that happening with a 3rd place finish on Frappe Snowland. That is, before I restarted. And after getting absolutely clobbered, I restarted again. And I just kept getting hit by cars and items, so I decided to take a small break and work on the tracks a little bit with time trials. And that really helped me a lot, because when I came back, I got first on Toad's Turnpike, first on Frappe Snowland, which I struggled a lot with off camera, second on Choco Mountain, and another first on Mario Raceway. The Star Cup was pretty boring by comparison, until it wasn't. I had Wario Stadium down at this point, building up a sizable lead before crossing the finish line, and jumping over the competition at the start helps a lot with that. And Sherbet Land was another good track for me, as long as I avoided the penguins. And a 3rd place finish there means that there is now a 3-way tie for first. Royal Raceway is another track that I had memorized pretty well, down to going off-road just before the end because it doesn't lose much time and is significantly easier. Sadly, I slowed down quite a bit after the jump for some reason, and Luigi got the lead from there. And once again, I managed to find myself in a familiar situation. I need to place one position better than a specific opponent, this time Luigi, on the final track in the cup. But there's one small problem. I am not good at Mario Kart 64's Bowser's Castle. After falling into the lava twice, I quit, which was a pretty bad decision, because after getting this far in the cup, I could just restart by getting 5th or worse an unlimited number of times. I performed pretty well on Wario Stadium for the 2nd time, right up until the final turn where I take the turn too early and hit the wall. On my 3rd time on Wario Stadium, I found out that Bowser is driving drunk. Oh, and I won this time. And this time on Sherbet Land, I fulfilled my promise of not running into the penguins. Oh, and I won there too. I still don't know what caused me to slow down suddenly after the jump in Royal Raceway, but luckily it didn't happen again. But I did lose control right at the end, so no first place for me still. With 6 points separating me and DK, all I need is to finish within 2 positions of him. I try my best during Bowser's Castle, but I see that DK finished first, and I have no chance of passing Wario for 3rd, so I slow down and wait for 5th to pass me so I can retry. And this time, I'm able to get 2nd place, so I win the cup by 3 points. I once again take a small break before moving on to the Special Cup. I was pretty good on DK's Jungle Parkway, and ended up in 1st. On Yoshi's Valley, I break too long while waiting for the egg, and I lost my lead right at the end. But surely that won't come back to haunt me, right? Well, if that didn't hurt me, a 3rd place finish on Banshee Boardwalk certainly did. Because I got 3rd there, it became impossible to win, even with the 1st in Rainbow Road. So I restart. On my 2nd try, I get 1st in DK's Jungle Parkway again, and I got the 1st in Yoshi Valley that I really should have had last time. Another bad Banshee Boardwalk means that I have to wait until 5th passes me in order to restart. And somehow I managed to get first this time. And as is tradition, I absolutely dominate in Rainbow Road. Honestly, I thought I would struggle a lot more in this game given how hard 50 and 100cc were compared to the rest of the games. But it didn't really feel like 150cc was significantly harder than 100cc. After getting stuck on the end screen, I reset my system and I'm able to see my newly unlocked secret menu screen. And more importantly, I was finally able to access our final set of cups in Extra, or Mirror mode. Once again, the Mushroom Cup was easy. And frankly, so has every Mirror mode in all of the games. This is the last game that I'll be playing that has a Mirror mode. And for some reason I always had this idea that Mirror mode was harder than 150cc. But this challenge really proved otherwise. There hasn't been a single change to a track that has made Mirror mode harder than 150cc in all of the games so far. And with this newfound confidence, I start the Flower Cup. The cars are backwards. Somehow I end up getting first place on my third try after 2 disastrous runs. I got first in Frappe Snowland too, and I think that this is my best performance on this track. I am still and forever will be bad at Choco Mountain. And a first in Mario Raceway gives me a definitive first place finish in the cup. And somehow, that was still easier than the 150cc version of that cup. I start the Star Cup off pretty well. I got first during the first 2 tracks, but I end pretty badly with 4th place finishes in the last 2 tracks. I was gonna throw to try again, but I realized I just have to win at this point. I no longer need gold cups, and I would still get 2nd place with a 4th place finish here, so I just do that instead. All that's left is the Special Cup. DK's Jungle Parkway once again was the hardest track in the cup, with a couple of mistakes leading me to restart. I didn't even know it was possible to hit the boat. The second time, I still made mistakes, but so did the CPUs, and I ended up getting first because they all ran into items. Yoshi Valley was pretty easy. I was front running for most of the race. Banshee Boardwalk, on the other hand, was a nightmare. Somehow, I ended up in 2nd though, and I actually managed to run into the Chain Chomps this time in Rainbow Road, but I was still able to collect myself and started front running from the 2nd lap onwards. And with that, I win my final cup for Mario Kart 64 in first place with 33 points. In the end, I finished Mario Kart 64 with 14 gold trophies and 2 silver trophies. One of my most dominant runs in any game yet. And it only took me 5 hours and 2 minutes out of the 66 hours and 1 minute that I have spent total. And finally, Super Mario Kart. Nintendo's very first attempt at a Mario Kart. Let's hope I don't suffer too much. Alright, let's get the obvious thing out of the way. This game was meant for 2 players. So let's see if this helps. Yeah, I don't know about that. During the first cup, I noticed something feels off. And not necessarily in a bad way. I guess the trauma from learning how to race in Mario Kart Super Circuit and 64 has made learning how to race in Super Mario Kart a walk in the park. Because once again, I started doing something I haven't done in quite a while. Lapping multiple opponents. And this wasn't a thing that just happened a few times throughout the Grand Prix. This happened in nearly all of the races. For all 3 Grand Prix. And yes, I said all 3, because after getting first in all 3 Grand Prix, the Special Cup did not unlock. Because there is no Special Cup in 50cc, so I just have to go straight ahead into 100cc. I took my first 2nd place finish during my first race in 100cc, but I still ended up getting first in all other races in the Cup. I also got first on all races in the Flower Cup, and I also dominated the Star Cup. On paper, I struggled a little bit on Bowser's Castle 3, and I actually decided to restart in order to place better, because I didn't want the 1 point with a 4th place finish. In retrospect, I didn't need to do this, but I did it anyways to basically guarantee that I would finish first in the cup. After that, it was another Mario Circuit, and with the first place in that, I got gold in the Star Cup. It looks like this game is just not as hard as I remember. And thanks to getting gold in all of the 3 main cups, I was able to unlock the special cup. All that's left is to get first on that, and we are able to access our last set of Grand Prix. And oh boy, I found where the devs hid all of the difficulty. This is by far the hardest cup. Every Mario Kart had one cup that would be a little bit more difficult than the others, but this is just crazy. This cup actually managed to leave me shaking from a mix of nervousness and relief at the final stretch. But let's start with Donut Plains 3. This track has some of the hardest turns in the game, and the CPUs are able to take them at near full speed. But if you even use half of your full speed, you are going to slam into a wall. You have to set the apex of your turn very precisely, because you'll have a wall on one side and a mole on the other. And almost as soon as the race started, I was fighting near the back of the pack. And after nearly an entire race of being unable to fight my way back into first, and struggling on every turn, I quit the race and decided to go and practice the tracks a little bit using the time trials. After a really short practice session, I came back, and I was able to get into first place just before the 5th and final lap. But at the end of that lap, I bumped into a wall and took a bad line during the final turn, so I ended up getting second. Up next was Koopa Beach 2, a track that I was really good at in the other games when it came back as a retro track. But I did have to fight my way back from 8th because the Cheep Cheep was further to the left than I thought it would be. But at the start of the final lap, I was able to take the lead and keep it until the end. After that was Ghost Valley 3, which was another track that I struggled with. I just kept falling off the track. Some places more than others. Something about that second turn was just impossible for me to consistently slow down and turn the right amount so I wouldn't bump into the wall on the left, or fall off on the right side. It also doesn't help when the CPUs bump you off the track right after you've been picked up. These two things made it so I had to restart on this track. Twice. The only changes I made on my third try was making sure to hit the boost and ramp on every lap to try to get as far ahead as possible during the race. Vanilla Lake 2 was another easy one. Just stay close to the lake and jump over all of the parts that stick out into the track. Guaranteed first every time. And finally, Rainbow Road. This is another one that I struggled a bit on, mainly because I've always been used to taking the turns as close as possible. But on this track, that ends up with me having to get picked up by Lakitu, and then being bumped off right after being put back on the track. I finished my first attempt in 5th, and was left with 2 attempts to get 2nd or better to guarantee a first place finish. I still fell off the track, and I also ran into the thwomps. But for some reason, I was able to find my way into first place this time, and I fell again near the end of the 4th lap. But once again, I found my way into first, allowing me to finish with 42 points, and giving me gold on every 100cc Grand Prix, giving me access to the 150cc cups, with basically zero pressure to perform well in them, because the special cup was already unlocked at 150cc. All I needed to do was to get at least 3rd place in each of them. But the Mushroom Cup showed me how hard these last cups were going to be. I had to restart on multiple tracks. But I was still able to finish the cup in 2nd place. The Flower Cup was looking to be a similar story, having to retry some tracks, yet still making enough progress to win. But something about Bowser's Castle 2 and Mario Circuit 2 made it nearly impossible to get in first, and also not get hit by a ton of items. I ended up having to go back and practice these tracks with save states, because there's no other way to practice the tracks at 150cc. After practicing the tracks a few times each, I was back and ready to take on the Grand Prix, and I crushed it. Absolutely demolished it. 1st place in each race. And with this newfound confidence, I decided to go and try the Star Cup without even practicing. I got 1st place in Koopa Beach 1 and Choco Island 2. I got 2nd place to Luigi in Vanilla Lake 1, and another 2nd to Yoshi in Bowser Castle 3, and I finished it off with a 1st in Mario Circuit 4, giving me another 1st place finish to add to my collection. And there I was. 1 cup left to add to my collection. The Super Mario Kart 150cc Special Cup. I fully expect this to be by far the hardest cup to finish. The jump in difficulty between the regular cups and the Special Cup was insane, and the jump in difficulty between 150cc was too. Part of me wants to practice, but the other really wants me to try and beat it on my first try. So here goes nothing. Yeah, that kind of went the way I expected. I end up using most of my lives here, but somehow I get really lucky and squeak by with the last second 3rd place. Koopa Beach 2 is the easiest course in the cup, but the CPUs are so fast that I still only end up getting 2nd place. Ghost Valley 3 is another easy track in this cup, and because of the boost ramp towards the end, I managed to get 1st in this one. Vanilla Lake 2 was pretty easy in 100cc, but the extra speed somehow makes jumping over the parts of the lake that stick out very hard. I end up using the rest of my lives here, and at this point, I'm a little bit annoyed. But because I did so much better than I expected, I decided to just keep trying without practicing. On my second attempt of the cup, I lose and get 8th on the first track. And I just restart the Grand Prix because I don't know if I'm going to need that extra life. The next time I end up finishing in 6th, but I believe that I raced well enough during most of the race to let me perform better on my next attempt. So I try again and get 3rd. I drive a little bit worse during this Koopa Beach too, and Mario just rockets past me on the last turn, so I end up getting 4th. Once again, during Ghost Valley 3, I raced just well enough for the boost ramp to give me a first place finish. And once again, it is time for Vanilla Lake 2. I start off a bit better than last time, but so many risky jumps made me lose my lead. I somehow regain that, but just before the last turn I get hit by Luigi's star, and then I get bumped by Mario into the lake, so that attempt was another loss. I try again, and I end up making less mistakes this time, but it still wasn't enough to finish the race, so I had to try again. I start a bit rough, but I climb my way back and end up neck and neck for first against Luigi to start the final lap. But I bump into the pipe again and end up in the lake. Then I don't jump and end up in this little hole in the track, so I just quit before the end. Vanilla Lake gets to claim another victim. I come back about an hour later, ready to finally beat this game. I make my way into second by the start of the final lap, but I fall off the track at this turn, losing my lead. Luckily, the last bit of track is the easiest, and I end up making my way into 3rd last second. During Koopa Beach 2, I'm fighting for 2nd for most of the race, but I bump into a wall near the end, so I end up in 4th. During Ghost Valley 3, I fall off this hole in the track after the boost ramp in lap 1. So I start lap 2 in 8th. I make my way into 5th by the start of lap 3. And I start lap 4 in 3rd. But I was too close to Yoshi, so I got hit with an egg before I could react. So I quickly was sent back to 5th. I start the final lap by making my way into 3rd. And then during the second turn, Yoshi falls off and I make my way into 2nd. At this point, Luigi was too far away, so I end up taking 2nd place. I start Vanilla Lake by making less mistakes once again. I said less, not 0. I fall into the lake a few times towards the end of the 3rd lap, and I can't make my way back during the entire 4th lap. So I start the final lap in 6th place. I take less risk to minimize my chance of losing, and I just barely get 4th place, allowing me to get into Rainbow Road in 3rd place with a 1-point lead over Peach. I am going to need to beat her again to win and not have to do this all over again. My first lap is pretty easy because the thwomps aren't active yet. I am able to get away from the pack, so I am heading to the end of the 2nd lap in 3rd before... And now I'm in 7th. I try to fight my way back, but I just keep falling off. And I finish in 7th place. I use my 3rd to last life. Starting the race in 7th place, I get bumped into 8th. I make my way into 6th before getting bumped off the track. Back to 8th. And I can't make my way back because I keep cutting corners too close and falling off of the track. And then I overcorrect and start making my turns too wide. I desperately try to make my way back, but this is just not gonna happen. I didn't even finish. I am on my 2nd to last life. Once again, I start off pretty well, but then Mario hits me with the star and bumps me off the track. And then I get bumped again, messing up a turn, and I fall off again. So just like the last attempt, mistake after mistake, and an 8th place finish. I am on my last life. I start off getting bumped twice, but luckily the 2 bumps cancel each other out. With some good and very risky turns, I'm able to start the 2nd lap in 3rd. A bit of luck with the thwomp's position allows me to get enough momentum to enter 2nd at the start of the 3rd lap, and during the 4th turn I am able to take 1st place. Having Luigi with the star on my tail, I take the last turn a bit wide and don't have enough room to avoid the egg Yoshi left on lap 2. Luckily, Yoshi bumps me from behind instead of the side right after, so I don't fall off the track. Once again, I am able to take 1st place back on the exact same turn, and with no egg to worry about this time, I am able to keep the lead into the final lap. I don't need to be perfect at this point. I just need to not make any major mistakes. The nerves are growing in me at this point. The road feels like it's getting tighter. The gaps between the thwomps and the edge of the road smaller. My hands trembling for the entire final lap, but I avoid all of the obstacles, keeping my 1st place, and finally winning my final Grand Prix with a 3rd place finish. Super Mario Kart is the smallest game in the series, so this only took me 3 hours and 30 minutes, bringing my total time to 69 hours and 31 minutes. My total trophy count was 276 golds, 13 silvers, and 4 bronze trophies.
Okay, so we just finished all of the Mario Karts. It has taken me over 2 weeks to finish and almost 70 hours of my life. And now we are going to rank them. This is the definitive list. If you disagree, I invite you to play each game back to back, and then you can make your own informed decision. There are only 8 games, so I cut the tiers down to 3: A, D, and Super Mario Kart. So let's start off with 8. This is the one I remember the least, even though it was like a majority of the challenge. A lot of tracks. Obviously, it looked the best. The DLC tracks kind of sucked in comparison. One thing I noticed, there were a lot more items being thrown at me with the first couple games I played. So I think we have to put 8 at A tier, right? It's just definitively a good game. By a similar logic, Mario Kart 7 is kind of just Mario Kart 8, right? They're basically the same game for different consoles. The game looks worse. I don't really care too much about that. It's another one of the good ones. Mario Kart Wii, do I have to fight the nostalgia? I don't know. So it's kind of when like the drifting started being cemented to like being good instead of like the mechanics that changed every other game. I like the items the most in this one. I think the fact that I don't really have anything too negative to say about Mario Kart Wii kind of shows that it's another A tier one. I guess we put it there. Mario Kart DS. The drifting kind of sucks. At least with the first few games, it was somewhat consistent, but with DS, it was just how fast could you spam left and right. Waluigi Pinball. Good track. It's a good track. That's it. That's almost redeeming enough. I don't like this. I don't like this. I think I'm gonna have to put a D tier. I just think it is a worse version of the next one, which is Mario Kart Double Dash. One thing that just annoyed me every time, everything just felt like I was on ice. It was so slippery. One thing I noticed is basically anytime there was a boost ramp on the course, the bots would automatically just get faster to make up for that, even if you didn't take the boost ramp. Items, so many items all over the place, and they are very strong, so not being able to use them sucked really bad. And it sucks because this is like the first Mario Kart I have nostalgia for, but this was by far the most infuriating Mario Kart. No, sorry, that's a lie. Because it was the first one that was actually infuriating, I have to put that one D tier. This is going to be a controversial pick. Super Circuit. It's hard. It is really, really hard. I can't put it into words just how hard this game is, but it's rewarding. It feels kind of good. It's still slippery. All the games from this point on are really slippery, but when you're good at Super Circuit, it is actually pretty rewarding. What else about Super Circuit? There weren't many items from this point on. The bots just didn't really use items, so this kind of just put me more on equal grounds with the bots. I have to put it A tier. It's a good one. Super Mario 64. So by far, this is the hardest one at the very beginning, right? 50cc, and every time you are guaranteed to have someone right behind you. The tracks are nice. Turning is hard in this one. It is like if you turn the ice mechanics in Double Dash and just turned it up to 11, it is somehow worse than Double Dash in terms of that. And then 150cc is just crazy. You cannot make a single mistake actually not even towards the end. You can't make a mistake at the beginning because you're not making up ground. I feel like this is going to be a controversial one. I wanted to put this in A tier. I had fun playing Super Mario 64. But I think that fun actually just came because it was like such a small amount of time. I didn't have time to start getting irritated. It's crazy. It's crazy. Super Mario 64. I have to put it D tier. I can't say Super Mario 64 is on the same tier as like 8, 7, Wii, and Super Circuit. Finally. Super Mario Kart. We already know where this is going, but I just want you to understand why it's going where it's going. So basically, it is just worse than Super Circuit in every single way. That's just the point. Super Circuit is like the real sequel of Super Mario Kart, and it's just improved it. The mechanics are better. Everything's better. Even though the turning feels better in Super Mario Kart, mainly because it's just easier. It's a slower game. It is just crazy jumps in difficulty. 50cc. Easy. 100cc, easy, until you get to the Special Cup. And then suddenly those tracks are just some of the hardest in the game. There's like zero difficulty curve. It is just a pure step, especially because that Donut Plains track, that first track in the Special Cup, is the hardest track in that cup. The infinite power-ups are crazy. Every time, because I was playing as Koopa, every single time I got close to my rival, Luigi, he just kept spamming the star. I could not get close to him, which meant I always had to take a worse line. Every time I passed someone, they would throw an item at me. The characters, even in the same weight class, can bump you off of your line, off of the track. It is infuriating. It seems like they do it on purpose because sometimes they just take the turns so badly that it just looks like they're slamming into you on purpose and they turn into you for no reason. The fact that every track is built on a grid, so you cannot take the corners too close because you will fall off. It's just like designed to be the most infuriating Mario Kart. Like, I'm not sure if people played it very much while developing it. It is just that bad. And it's crazy how this game gaslit me. For a few moments, right around 100cc flower cup, I was thinking, I'm going to have to change this bit. I had this bit planned of Super Mario Kart having its own tier because of how bad it was. It made me realize, no, I was correct. This is by far the worst Mario Kart. That's the tier list. Is there anything I could change here though? I don't think I would change too much. Most games are good. There's a few that are like, they just have some mechanics that make you wonder why. And then there's Super Mario Kart that's just a complete mess all throughout.
So that's it. Every single Mario Kart. 1,291 races completed without using items. And I actually learned a few things. Playing so many Mario Karts back to back is a bad idea. This video was a bad idea, and I somehow managed to have more fun learning to speedrun Super Mario 64. Be sure to watch that here.